Hello, TONMO. It's Aaron here, also known as GPO87 on the forums. Now, today on the TONMO podcast, I thought we'd try something a little bit different. Tony and I have very frequently talked about cephalopods in film and media and TV, and dreamed about doing a review of those things. So I thought, why don't we do that? Let's do a review of how cephalopods appear in film and TV. Now, specifically, I have a passion for really badly made creature features. I don't know if you do too, but as you're into cephalopods, there's a good chance that those may align. It's just kind of a ceph-head thing, I think. Anyway, so I thought that we'd look at some creature features that feature octopus and squid as the antagonist or main creature, and look at them from maybe more of a scientific point of view, and consider things that are, really good about how they've portrayed them, or some things that maybe the film industry has exaggerated or just kind of made up so that it's an entertaining film. So if this is something that people really like and would like to see more of, then we'll try and make this a continuing kind of mini-series, and we'll look at a bunch of different creature features and compare them. But for today, we're going to start with some old Hollywood. I love old Hollywood movies. I think that they are really fun to watch, and they have this energy about them that we just don't capture in movies today. So we're starting with some old stuff, and we're starting with a good one. We're starting with It Came From Beneath the Sea, which was filmed in 1955 by Columbia Pictures. Now, I had never seen this movie when I watched it, so I didn't really know what to expect, but I know that I had seen at least like the movie poster on some blog or site somewhere. So, I knew it existed. I thought that it was the first of kind of the cephalopod-themed creature features. It's not. 20,000 Leagues Beneath the Sea technically came out the year before this one, and we will get to 20,000 Leagues because it's one of my favorite movies. But for now, let's start with a classic golden age of Hollywood film. It Came From Beneath the Sea by Columbia Pictures. Now, this film features Donald Curtis, Faith Domergue, and Kenneth Tobey. And it very loosely has a plot which I'm pretty sure if we continue the series is going to become kind of cliche. It starts off by introducing this brand new naval submarine that has been created and developed with, leading technology, and it will withstand any attack from any force known to man. Dun dun dun. And then, of course, there's a force not known to man that attacks the submarine, and then we all want to know what attacked the submarine. It's a great mystery. Anyway, so it opens the film with this very dramatic submarine attack. The camera shakes, everybody falls over dramatically, and they say, "What was that?" And it says, "Well, there's something on the sonar." But we don't actually ever get to see what it is. I found that that's like one of the main things that they do in creature features to build the tension is they don't actually show you the creature until about halfway through the movie. Think of Jaws. You go through half of Jaws without actually seeing the shark at all. There's just dramatic music and people dying. So similar idea here, something that definitely the 1950s Hollywood did the same as a lot of the 1970s and 80s films, which we'll hopefully eventually get to, fingers crossed. We've got this submarine, it gets attacked, and they want to know what happened to it. So they bring in some scientists. They bring in Dr. John Carter, who's played by Curtis, and Professor Leslie Joyce, who's played by Domergue. And they meet up with the submarine's commander, who is Pete Matthews, played by Toby. And the three of them are the kind of three main characters that we run with throughout the whole film. Now, I will say this is nothing to do with the octopus, but there is a continuing love triangle that they vaguely refer to throughout this film. We just can't get away from love triangles even today. I don't think that it was as bad as the Twilight love triangle. Sorry for all of you people that really love Twilight. But it definitely touches on it, sometimes really awkwardly. So these three people all kind of are into each other, but they're into science more. And that's the most important thing, right? So yeah, they bring these three people together, and they examine a piece of flesh from the mysterious creature that attacked the submarine. And they find out that it's radioactive. Actually, they introduce the scientists, and they're all wearing hazmat suits. And they did this, I figured out why they did this. They did this, A, because they wanted to introduce that it's radioactive, but B, it also builds mystery about who the scientists are, and then they do this dramatic reveal, and of course, the female scientist is this femme fatale style character, and both the men just kind of gaze longingly at her. Love triangle, it goes on and on. I'll probably mention it again. I'm sorry in advance. Anyway, so there's this great scene where they've got a whole bunch of random fish tanks with just kind of fish and crabs and nothing super special. And the scientists are just kind of poking them with sticks. This is science. Poke it with a stick. We all know this, right? And the naval commander is asleep at the desk. And I went, huh, okay. Anyway, so then the scientists discover what it was, and the most amazing thing happens. They say, we know what it is. And the commander doesn't ask them what it is. He gets on the phone, and he goes to his boss, and he says, hey, they figured out what it is. And again, the boss doesn't ask what it is. He says, okay, I'm going to send someone from middle management to come, and you can brief him. And I went, yep, that is science right there. You make a discovery, you pass it on to the powers that be, and they send middle management to come and negotiate with you. Anyway, trauma from science days. So they do this reveal where they showcase that it's an octopus, and then they talk about how they introduced low levels of radioactivity into this octopus, and all of a sudden it's having trouble catching food in the tank. So their hypothesis is that a bunch of radioactivity from hydrogen bomb testing in the Western Pacific has drifted and migrated across the Pacific and into the depths and made this octopus, this rather large octopus, radioactive. And because of that, all of the things that it would normally eat can kind of either see it or sense it in the deep dark depths, and they've all swum away. And it has no food, so therefore it's coming up to the surface and hunting at the surface for food. And it went after a submarine, I guess because there was a radioactive signature on it? Don't know. They don't really go into that part in too much detail. However, I was impressed that, for plot points at least, they kind of tried to justify where they were going with this. It might be a bit far-fetched, but they had some good reasoning behind it. Yeah, so that's kind of where the plot went. Now, as I said before, the octopus itself really doesn't start to feature until the middle or end of the movie. There's the submarine attack, then there is a second attack where they confirm that this was an octopus, the second attack on a fishing vessel, and again you kind of see a shadowy form of the octopus below the water, and then you see an arm reaching out and grabbing the boat and the people, and there's general chaos. So that's kind of all you get for a little while. And then, midway through the movie, there's an attack on a beach. Now, the attack on a beach is interesting for a few reasons, in my humble opinion. Firstly, they give all of these situations of weird things happening along the west coast of North America, and in amongst them, there's a family that has gone missing at the beach. And they go, yes, that's definitely the one. It's not the low fishing vessels, and it's not weird weather station things, it's not this. It's definitely the family that went missing at the beach. So they send our trio out to the beach, and miraculously, despite the fact that this may have happened, a couple of days or hours ago, there is a single giant sucker print in the sand on the beach, perfectly preserved. Again, confirming that it's a rather large cephalopod. And they say to the constable that they brought with them, you need to cordon off the beach. No one can come here. It's not safe. And he laughs at them and then wanders off on his own. And of course, then there's dramatic music, so you know something's going to happen. And indeed, it does. There is a giant octopus that magically appears and attacks and eats this constable. He screams, and then they run off in panic. Now, so this is the first view that we get of the creature, the thing that came from beneath the sea. At first glance, there's a couple of things that I really like about it. I really like that the mantle of the octopus is textured. that they haven't just done a smooth round bulb and called it a day. They gave the octopus texture, as we see in what I would assume would be the closest representation of this, the giant Pacific octopus. Whenever we see photos of it, it's going to have texture and folds and bumps along its outer mantle. So I like that they did this. I also really love that they did the little rhinophores above the eyes. I think in general that means that the octopus is happy, so maybe it really enjoys attacking people on the beach. But I love that they added that feature, that they had the rhinophores, that they had texture. Now, that being said, I will say that some of the texture looked a little bit like cobblestone, and I don't know that cobblestone is usually what I think of when I think of a cephalopod, but hey, they put texture on there. I guess I can't complain that much. I mean, they're using stop motion, so they have to do something that they can keep kind of consistent as they move the parts around. Anyway, so we see this great shot of this great initial shot of the cephalopod, and first impressions, quite good. You can even see the cavity between the head and the mantle. Later on in the movie, there's some movement there, which is nice to see. But this is kind of our first view of the rather large cephalopod. And so they go back and they reconvene with the powers that be, the military, and they devise how they're going to protect humanity from this, fearsome creature. And this is where it starts to get a little bit dicey plot-wise. They come up with some good suggestions. I think they build a state-of-the-art torpedo, which is going to inject explosives into the animal. And they decide that San Francisco is probably the best place for them to launch their attack. Now, I don't know why they decided San Francisco is the best, but they kind of said, yes, San Francisco, this is definitely where it's going to work. We'll have a submarine with this torpedo, and we're going to cover the bridge in electric cables, because it's clearly going to attack the bridge, and then we'll electrocute it, and it'll all be fine. And at that point, I was a bit confused, and I was like, well, how do you know that it's going to attack San Francisco? This is a bit of a stretch. But then they show footage of them kind of throwing more explosives into the ocean to scare it towards San Francisco. I guess that could work. I don't know. I feel like if you're an octopus and things start exploding, I don't know that I would particularly go closer to the shore. I feel like it would want to hide in a hole in the depths somewhere, but maybe that's just me. I'm not an octopus. Maybe San Francisco is where octopuses go to feel safe. So they have this whole scene, and they send it towards San Francisco, and then, of course, there's the dramatic moment where it, of course, attacks the Golden Gate Bridge. And this is kind of the image that I had seen from this movie, of this big octopus on the bridge, arms everywhere, and this is where it starts to get really good, in my opinion. So let's talk about some of the things that they've done really well with this octopus, in terms of science, morphology, physical traits, behaviors, that sort of stuff. I think for me the thing that stuck out the most was the arms. We see the arms the most. Because they're attacking ships and they're attacking helicopters and they're climbing up the bridge. So the arms are done really well. The anatomy of them is quite good. Since we're talking about an octopus, the close-ups of the suckers are muscular suckers that have little crevices in them, much like you would see on a giant Pacific octopus, as opposed to suckers which would have the rings around them like we would see in squid, rings with little teeth. So they had the correct suckers, which was great. They had little membranes along the sides of the arms, which would distinguish the oral surface, where the suckers are, from the aboral surface, or what we would consider to be the back of the arms. And even at some points, in some of the shots, you can see tiny little papillae along the sides of the arms. I'm assuming that's what they were going for. I don't necessarily know if octopus have papillae, but I know that a lot of cephalopods do, so I don't think it's quite far-fetched to have this particular cephalopod have some additional papillae along the arms. So the sucker morphology I thought was really good. The suckers were alternated like we would see in octopuses, and there was some variation in size as you traveled along the arm in different shots. Now I think they reused kind of the same arm for a lot of the close-ups, but that being said, they did put a lot of effort into making sure that the sucker anatomy was fairly consistent with what we would see in big cephalopods that actually exist. So yeah, that was really good. There was one or two scenes. It's when the big octopus is coming out of the bridge and it's raising its arms, and the arms themselves, the back of the arms, the way that they've done the musculature makes it look a little bit like the Michelin Man, like it's like a puff jacket. I don't know that that's how I would have chosen to do the musculature on this particular creature, but it's what they chose to do. It doesn't ruin the movie at all. It was just kind of me sitting there going, huh, I know that the muscles contract for arm movement, but I don't know if it contracts quite like that. I might have to go watch some more octopus videos to find out how accurate that is. Now, that being said, one of the other things that I really, really loved about the giant octopus in this movie was the way that they did behavior. The way that, even with stop motion, they did arm movements. Most of the time, when you saw the animal coming out of the water, it would have curled arms, and the suckers would attach to something, and the arm would uncurl and start to pull the weight of the octopus out of the water, which is something that we see in octopus behavior in real life. When it's coming out of a tide pool, the arm only has so much strength, and it usually curls in on itself just to try and give it a little bit more oomph and more motion. So it was really cool to see that. There's even a scene, there's a couple of scenes actually, where the octopus is searching inside buildings or sticking its arm through doorways and kind of reaching around. And again, this is the motion of that and the behavior of that was very consistent with how octopuses hunt. So their creative team spent a lot of time looking at octopus behavior and making an accurate representation of that in their stop motion. And I really have to give them credit. I mean, we're so used to CGI creatures in modern films that this kind of golden age stop motion filmography is kind of lost. And I really appreciated it, and I could see all of the effort that they were putting into making this be a really believable creature. So I think they did a really, really good job of that. As I said before, there are a few instances, the scene where it attacks the Golden Gate Bridge in particular, you can actually see the mantle contracting just a little bit. And I love that they weren't just focusing on arm movement and attack, they were thinking about the animal as a whole and how it would be behaving. So yeah, again, props to the creative team. They spent a lot of time looking at these behaviors and really incorporating them into the film. So yeah, I really enjoyed that part of it. So there's this great scene where there's a clock tower and the train station in the foreground, and then behind it there's two arms, and they're just kind of mostly straight up, just waving back and forth. And I really had to laugh at that part, because although they had really good motion in other parts where the octopus was, you know, using its arms and its suckers to pull its weight out of the water, this just seemed really unbelievable. I don't know that octopuses would have great range of motion holding their arms straight up and waving them back and forth, especially an octopus of that size. So I did have a good chuckle at this scene. It was kind of the least believable of the behavior moments, but you know, they had some fun with it, and it creates a really good visual. Now, during the scene where it attacks San Francisco is where you really get a good sense of the coloration they used. The original movie was black and white, and then at some point they did a recoloration, and that's the one that I ended up watching. So I got to see what color they thought this giant octopus was. And the way that they colored it was like a really dark green, and then kind of a fleshy pink underside on the suckers and the arms. And I thought, that may not have been the most visually pleasing color combination, and it also wasn't really something that I would expect to see in the cephalopod world. Green is not really a color that I would associate with too many cephalopods, but I mean, if we're talking about a radioactive creature, which might have been what they were going for, I guess radioactive green might work. But that being said, I thought if we're kind of basing this on existing large octopuses like the giant Pacific, then a really deep red coloration would have worked just fine with this, and would have been just as believable. But they went with green, and that was one of the things that I didn't really love about this recoloration. Everything else about it was fine though, but yeah, the green was a bit odd for me. So one thing that we don't actually get to see at all in this movie is the beak, which, as we know from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, for those of you that have seen it, there's a really great beak shot, but we don't get a beak shot in this movie. And the other thing that they avoid a lot of the movie is the eye. And I don't exactly know why they did that. It's always kind of in the shadows, and you don't really get a good eye shot until the very end. So in the plot, they managed to drive the octopus off the coast of San Francisco using flamethrowers. And those are some really good scenes. They kind of shoot the arm with the flamethrower and it rolls up and pulls out. And so that was really enjoyable. I mean, I was still cheering for the cephalopod because, of course. But, they did a good job getting it back into the ocean. And then once it's in San Francisco Bay, that's when the submarine comes in and it shoots the missile at it, and it's the end of the movie. But before that, there's some dramatic things that happen. They shoot it in, and actually I'm having to go through my memory banks here. I think they shoot it in and it doesn't properly detonate, so they decide that they have to send someone out to, inject the explosives manually. They send the scientist and the naval commander out into the ocean to attack this octopus by person. And there's this great close-up scene where, of course, they've got the diver swimming, and then right behind him, the eye opens up. And it's kind of the close-up that you get of the eye. And I was so excited when this part happened, because, as I said, there weren't a lot of shots of the eye in the movie. And the eye itself, I'll put a little picture up, it just looks wrong. And I'm so sorry, Columbia Pictures. You did so well on anatomy for everything else that the eye was very uncanny valley. I didn't really know what was happening. It was, in the close-up scene when it opens, it's kind of round, but not really round. It's more like an oval, and it's glowing yellow, which, that's fine. Again, radioactive. But yeah, the shape of it, when octopuses have such a distinctive eye shape, that line, that slit eye, having the round eye in the close-up was really weird. And you might say, oh, well, there are some octopuses that have more of a round eye shape. If we think of the deep-sea octopuses, a lot of them have been photographed with rounder eyes, or more cartoony eyes, as we like to see. And I would agree with you. But then they do another shot a little bit further back of the octopus grabbing the submarine and attacking it, and again, the eyes are slits like you would expect them to be. And those are kind of the only two shots where we get a really good view of the eye, and I wish that they had been consistent. Because I think that one or the other would have been acceptable. I personally would have liked to see the slit eye. I think that that really kind of adds to the alien-esque image of the radioactive cephalopod, but either one would have been fine. I just wish that they had really gone with consistency and not used that kind of weird oval iris. It looked wrong to me. So I've got some screenshots up here. What do you think? Do you like the eye? Let me know in the comments below. So yeah, there was a lot of good aspects of this movie, and there were a couple of really, really, fun moments throughout. One of my favorite moments of this film, and for me, probably the most realistic moment of the film, was as they were getting ready to launch their attack in San Francisco Bay. They hold a press conference, and this is Professor Joyce. So she's kind of explaining about the cephalopod and what they're planning to do, and they're introducing the missile and how it's this amazing thing that's going to kill the octopus. And she asks for questions, and the questions she gets are, how big is it? Where did it come from? How many of them are there? Are there going to be more attacks? And I just sat there going, who knows this? And this, for me, was the most realistic aspect of the movie, because I, too, have been in press conferences where they said, how many are there? How big are these things, these rather large squid in the deep sea that we've only seen maybe once alive? And you just kind of laugh and go, oh, I don't know. And she did the same thing, so I felt vindicated. That was fine. So that was probably, personally, my favorite moment. It's the part where I definitely laughed the loudest. The movie wasn't supposed to be a comedy, but there were a few parts that I found particularly humorous. So, an overall summary of this. If you really like old Hollywood movies, and if you enjoy that style of acting, this is a classic film. You're really going to enjoy it. The acting overall is pretty good. I mean, the love triangle is cringy, but the acting's enjoyable. They read it with passion, and there's a few kind of classic Hollywood tropes, but it's a good watch. The plot, I was impressed. It's well thought out. There's a few times where they start to grasp at straws, but aside from that, they have really tried to justify how this giant radioactive octopus came to the surface and why it's attacking things. It's just looking for food. I mean, we all get a bit angry when we're hungry, right? And I really, really love the stop-motion creature. Its movements are really smooth, and they've put, as I said, a lot of detail into making this a believable large cephalopod. So, overall, for this movie, we got to give it a rating, right? Yeah, we got to give this a rating. And because we're talking about an octopus, it's going to be out of 8. Let's make it a really awkward number. So, out of 8, acting was good, plot was fairly plausible for the most part, and the stop-motion creature was really good. I would give this a solid 6 tentacles out of 8. So yeah, that's what I thought of It Came From Beneath the Sea. If you haven't seen it yet and you love cephalopods in movies, go find it. I found it on Prime, but this isn't a paid sponsorship, so you can go find it wherever you want. But yeah, take a moment, go watch it, and grab some popcorn. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Now, if you've thought that this was kind of a fun diversion from daily life and would like to see more of this, please let us know in the comments. If there's a specific cephalopod creature feature that you think should be reviewed, let me know. And if you can think of a name for this, and we decide to keep it going as a little mini-series, give me a name. Right now, I'm leaning towards Cinema Suckers. I think that's going to be, really dramatic. But if you've got some suggestions, let me know. This can be a work in progress. Anyway, so I hope you've enjoyed this, and that it has inspired you to go watch some creature features yourself. And if we do another one of these, I guess we'll see you on the silver screen.